The very bad advice that I got was a piece of advice that I got over and over again that I needed to scale. And even worse, more specific, was that if I was not building a company with the intention of scaling, it wasn't a real company. It wasn't worth starting.
For founders, the advice never ends. So discernment becomes a valuable skill. Think of this show as practice. I'm Lindsay Chepkema, and this is Actually I Can. Good conversations about bad advice. Let's get into it.
Hello, I'm Leslie Venetz. I'm the founder of the sales-led go-to-market agency, which I've been running full-time for 4 years after a 15 plus year career in corporate as an individual contributor and as a first, second, third line sales leader. And now I have the gift of helping sales teams understand how to earn trust and drive revenue. And I focus predominantly on top of funnel work, like figuring out your ICP and territory through to making sure that you host incredible discovery meetings.
I love it. People like you have been friends with people like me professionally for a long time. Like the brand builder in me sees the top of funnel pipeline builder in you.
Yes.
And I love it very much. Yes, exactly.
I can't ever, how do the Gen Z do hearts?
Oh,
They do it. I don't know. I don't think I'm
like
cool
a
enough
weird,
for that, Lindsay.
I've never been cool enough for anything, so I feel you. Okay, so we could chat all day about fun things, but let's get into the bad advice that brings you here today, Leslie. What is it?
Yes, the not so fun things, the bad advice that literally made me question starting this company in the first place. So the very bad advice that I got was I knew I was going to leave corporate. And I felt in my heart of hearts that a solopreneurship was the direction for me. But I'd spent a career managing sales teams and like building and scaling companies and products. So a piece of advice that I got over and over again was that I needed to scale. And even worse, more specific, was that if I was not building a company with the intention of scaling, of growing, of being an employer, of hiring folks, of growing my revenue, it wasn't a real company. It wasn't worth starting.
The not a real company. Okay. Where did it come from? Was this like over and over and over from lots of people? Was it from one person? Like, where did this come from?
Unfortunately, it was from a lot of people because I did what so many of us do when we're embarking on a new scary thing, as I sort of shared it with the community and kind of sense checked it with peers. And so I had multiple people, like I would say in the range of 6 to 10, come back with strong opinions that the path forward that I saw for myself in this business and what I felt was most important in creating this company as a full-time founder was a deeply flawed assumption. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what was good for me. And that was just not going to work out. That wasn't how you started a company. If that's what I wanted to do, it was kind of a waste of time because it wasn't going to work out. I was hearing different iterations of it, like different versions of it from multiple people over the course of that, not just the few months before I left my corporate job, but even in, I would say those first like 6 to 9 months after I started, that I would be 10 toes down on a founder journey. And people would really call me out and question my vision.
Okay. I'm all kinds of triggered because I had the same experience. Different context, of course, not about me, it's about you, but like I absolutely got this too. And my mistake was something that you said. I asked way too many people. Hey, what do you think? You know me well. Even people, there were the naysayers, but there were also people who knew me really well, who are still good professional friends who were like, Lindsay, you don't want to do that. You're never going to succeed if you don't. The only way you're going to do X, Y, and Z is if you do this. Do you really want blah, blah, blah? It really messed with my head for a long time. So for you, where do you think it comes from?
If I give the time I left corporate a little bit of historical context, like we were just coming out of this growth at all costs era in SaaS.
Oh, I remember it well.
Right? So every single conversation was like, how could I get multiples and scale to the moon? Who cares if my entire team's at 38% of quota? We'll just hire more people, right?
Fire them all and hire more. Yep.
So every single conversation that was happening in sort of the bubble, like the echo chamber of SaaS, was about scaling And anybody that was doing sort of this founder life, they weren't really calling themselves a founder. They weren't owning that they were the founder of a company. They were calling themselves fractions. They were viewing themselves as gig workers that were like doing a thing for a while until
Freelancers.
something else happened. Freelancers, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So I think there were a couple things happening historically in terms of like the overall narrative, and a lot of people were leaving because it was COVID-ish times and doing this like gig freelancer fractional work. But that wasn't me. Like I wasn't trying to freelance for a couple of months or a year until I went back to corporate. I was leaving behind this dream that I had worked my entire corporate career to track towards, which was becoming like a proper CRO, like full revenue ownership by 40. Like I was divorcing myself from that path and I was starting a new path. And that was as a solopreneur and as a full-time founder, building a durable business. So I think a lot of the advice was really well intentioned. It was just not meant for me. And tell me if you feel some of this too. As I reflect back on it, I think a lot of it was born of people's personal fears and doubts.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And what did you do with it? Did you listen to it? Did it mess with your head like it messed with mine? What did you do with all of these people telling you your vision was wrong?
The bad advice definitely messed with my head. Luckily, I was more confident in my like inner knowing, and I was more confident in my vision than I was in their bad advice. So like it messed with my head. I'm not going to pretend like it didn't, but what overrode that was being like, thank you. And I'm going to just like go this other direction. And so I stopped asking, but even when I stopped asking people for their feedback, I still a lot of unsolicited
Oh,
feedback.
yeah.
And interestingly, that was what like solidified me knowing that I for sure was on the right path, because I would hear this feedback unsolicited from people who may or may not really know who I am or know the type of business and life that I'm trying to build. And my reaction to it would be so, ugh, that I was like, okay, I know I'm doing what's right for me. But I will add that something that really helped is in between leaving my corporate job and launching officially as a full-time founder, I took almost 3 months off. I still was serving a couple of my like MRR clients that I had been serving when I was doing it like a part-time passion project side hustle, but that was a few hours a week. Otherwise, I spent weeks asking myself these questions like, what about a solopreneurship is right for me? What is the most important thing to me? The answer was freedom. So I was really lucky that I had a long enough runway that I could take a few weeks to think deep thoughts about my vision and my like inner knowing and direction, and really be, 10 toes down confident that I'm making the right choices for me and my life.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's very wise advice, because it's grounded in confidence. And that's what you just said. The word confidence, that's where it all comes from. Like you have to believe in yourself more than anybody else ever will. No one will ever believe in you as much as you believe in you. So if you set the bar low, you're not going to get very far. You get to where you are through network and through advice and through conversations. And what do you think I should do? And what did you do in this situation? Do you think this is a good idea? How would you handle this? I know all of these things. Here's a gap I have. I'm self-aware. How would you fill this gap? Like that's how we get to wherever we are. Like that's how you find success. And then suddenly you go out and set foot on the founder journey, and discernment becomes a superpower, because you still need advice. You still need to talk to smart people, but so much of that advice you get back is exactly what you said. It's not for you. So let's talk about that a little bit, as far as how much is too much, how much of asking of other people is a good amount, how much is too much, and discernment. How do you know, even from somebody who is a super, super smart person who has your best interest in mind, how do you get to that point that you just said, like, I don't think that's for me? Like, how do you know?
Two things came up for me right away. One is that I'm very much a like, what got me here won't get me there sort of person in everything I do. So I am constantly looking to learn new things and accept new inputs and like test and trial and iterate and be willing to risk getting things wrong on that journey. And ages ago, maybe this was like a decade or so ago, I actually joined a bootstrap startup as employee number one. Why? I don't know.
Because you're crazy.
Because I'm crazy. What allowed me to be so successful in that role was that I was so willing to say, I've never done this before. What have you tried? What worked? What didn't work? Like, what do you think? So like having that appetite to learn and just like be humble and saying, I've never done this. I'm open to all of your suggestions. That is what allowed me to be so successful in that role. Like took an MVP, made it into a full GTM strategy in 9 months. And then 9 months later had 21 logos closed, like so crazy successful.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
I tried to like drag and drop that into this new thing I was trying, and I didn't get the same results. That's okay. That's okay.
Hmm.
What the other thing that like popped into my head though is it's so funny how the same process of discernment that I went through in thinking about what advice is meant for me is often what I am like banging the drum on when it comes to the clients that I serve, that we serve, or the way people even consume information on LinkedIn. That it's like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, sure. Like that is a post from a top performing AE, a company that sells a extraordinarily well-known and well-respected piece of sales technology to salespeople. So maybe you, as a full cycle seller selling tractor equipment to operations managers, maybe that isn't meant for you. So I
Might have
think there
different
is
results.
this right. There is this element of I don't regret going out and asking folks for their insight because in a lot of ways it validated my emotions because my reaction to them and like hearing them and then so
Yeah.
strongly rejecting them allowed me to more quickly, just decide that like, yeah, what I want is what I want and nobody's going to change that. But I think there is an element of like, hey, we should all be using critical thinking, whether it's on our founder journey or the way we're building our revenue strategies or even like whatever, like buying a new appliance from our home to say, hey, just because somebody else likes it for XYZ reason, or just because it worked for somebody else for ABC reason, is that applicable to me? Does that have fit for purpose in the vision I'm trying to bring to life for my business or the way I want to show up in the world?
Yeah. Because, man's trash is another man's treasure. Like it's as
Totally.
simple as that. Whereas, everyone can say, this isn't the way, this isn't the way. You're never going to, you're always going to, this is the way. But if it was that simple, everybody would be doing whatever it is that one way and everybody would be successful. But
Yeah.
especially when it comes to being a founder, what makes you different is what makes you successful, right? I mean, and especially like you don't have to appeal to everyone. You don't have to sell whatever it is you're
Yeah.
selling to literally everyone. And I think that we get really wrapped up in the fear and the scarcity of like, yeah, but what if this doesn't work? That it be those voices of like the naysayers, even if they're unintentional naysayers, become really scary. They become really scary.
Totally. And something that I think added another layer of complexity to it, Lindsay, and I know that I'm not the only founder that has experienced this, is that I also had to go through maybe a mindset pivot of just because I'm good at something doesn't mean I have to do it. So when I
Mm,
am designing my own business and deciding who I want to serve and how I want to serve them, just because I'm good at something doesn't mean that that is what I have to build my product around. And because I had a career as a high performance sales leader, and because of a lot of the people I talked to had interacted with me and like knew how passionate I was about sales leadership and how successful I'd been and the impact I made for my teams, that I think some of it was like a disconnect for them, that they were like, but you're so good at this. So like obviously the thing that you need to do next is continue to be a leader. And I
right.
was like, hey, so the funny thing about sales leadership is that it's just emotionally, mentally exhausting. And it's great. And I did that. And I'm so grateful for the impact that I was able to make on so many lives. But like now I'm in a different phase of my career. And maybe the most important thing for me to give back to the sales profession right now is not as a direct leader of people.
So how did you get that clarity? Like was there a moment? Was there like season? Like how did you get to the place where you had so much clarity and conviction and confidence in what you wanted to build, that you were also able to develop discernment and know what advice was for you and what wasn't?
It wasn't like you would think that it would be like an aha moment, but it wasn't. Like it wasn't that. I think it was sort of like the death by a thousand cuts that left me so beat up and so burned out that I was willing to explore a path that I'd never considered before, because I was not somebody that was called to entrepreneurship. It was not like the path that I aspired to. It was not something that I saw modeled in my family, in my community. So it was more of a, like, I had been in some extraordinarily toxic sales environments. I'd had some extraordinarily toxic sales leaders. I had experienced pretty severe burnout on multiple occasions. I knew I was going to leave the job I was in. It was a great job, great product, but like it had run its course. It was time for me to move on to my next thing so that I could stay on track for CRO by 40, right? Like I was locked in. And I was applying for these jobs at like Series B, Series C startups. And it was just a really terrible experience. There was a tremendous amount of disrespect for sales as a profession. Like you could tell that these founders were like genuinely mad that they had to hire a sales leader. Like
That's
I
a
don't like
great situation to step into.
it was so weird, and it was happening
Sign
over
me
and
up.
over again.
Jeez.
And then there was also, like 92% of startup funding goes to men, predominantly like white men. And so there was just some really gross, weird questions being asked about my family and if I was going to start a family. And like I'd left a role after 6 months because I'd been like very violently verbally abused and sexually harassed. People literally being like, "Are you sure that's why you left?" So it was this moment, Lindsay, of like the
I'll see
death by a
myself out,
thousand
thanks.
cuts. Right. I was like, bye-bye. So it was this moment of like kind of a death by a thousand cuts. Having had an extremely successful sales career, but having had that career at the cost of a lot of my like mental and physical health. Like I was really
Yes.
willing to do whatever it took to brute force my way to success. And I did that. And I'm proud of the work I did and the impact I made, but there was a real cost to it. And so it was like 15 years of that. And then finding myself in this position where I was having conversation after conversation where I was like, I don't feel good. Like these conversations are making me feel bad. Why am I trying so hard to get a job working for these people who I don't think really like me, not like me, a person, but me, like, as the personification of a sales leader. And so I thought maybe I'll just like, I don't know, like make this side business that I've been doing that I enjoy into my full-time job. I don't know if I'll like it or not. Like maybe I'll hate it. Maybe I'll miss corporate. Maybe I'll miss having colleagues, but I'll try it. What's the worst thing that happens? I go back and I get a corporate job. So yeah, I mean, it would be a better story if I had this like epiphany moment and was like, I know my path forward, but it wasn't that. It was like I needed to do something else. And this was like the only other thing that I hadn't tried yet that felt like maybe it could be an answer to some of the things that hadn't been working.
Right. And I think it started with you and your experience, but you're also making a difference in a lot of organizations and serving the former yous at those organizations, right? So you've solved the situation for you, and you're also making an impact on other organizations and other people, which I think is pretty great. I think
Totally.
it's pretty
There's
great.
this group, I think you've probably heard me talk about it. Monica Stewart's also a member, called Brand Builders Group. And they say that you are best positioned to serve the person you used to be.
Oh, I 100% believe that. A
Right?
billion percent. Yes.
It's so powerful. So it really is like, sure, I'm not directly managing people because I've chose the solopreneur life, but what I get to do instead is go into organizations and help sales leaders that are in the position that I used to be in, where like I was willing to do whatever it took to hit quota, but I didn't really feel super safe testing new strategies, or maybe I just didn't know Like I didn't have the context to know what was actually working and what I should test and what I should iterate. Or maybe like I just needed a safe place to sense check my ideas. So it's like all of the things that I maybe was missing in different roles at different points of my career. I can see bits and pieces of those in the sales leaders that I get to serve now. And it's
Mhm.
pretty awesome.
It is pretty awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
same. And it's a beautiful thing when you get to take all of the highs and lows that have gotten you to where you are and turn back around and help be the person, be the helper, be the support system that you wish you had, that you really needed along the way to be able to turn around and be that for others. It is a beautiful thing. It's pretty great.
It is.
So, talked bad advice. Let's replace that with some good advice. What do you, speaking of what you needed then, what would you share?
Say, I know that your audience is very founder heavy. And so from a founder perspective, I'll share that something that helped me when I first launched and has continued to help me. I just celebrated my 4-year anniversary
Congratulations.
as a full-time founder. Thank you. Is that I have continued to be very clear about what my North Star is. So for me, that's freedom. Freedom in who I serve, freedom in the type of work I do, freedom in how I own my time and how I get to show up, like freedom across all of the different ways you could imagine it. And I share that it is so important to like be clear on that North Star and constantly evaluate it and make sure it's the right one, because it is not always easy to come back to it. And I've seen that come up in a couple of ways. One is in calendar creep, where I'll let some of those old habits of corporate, where I'm like, I'll brute force this, I'll just work extra, I'll do whatever it takes. So one of them is definitely in calendar creep, that I'm like, no, you work for yourself. If your work is done, even if it's 3:30, you don't have to do another hour and a half of work just to do it, Leslie. Like, give your brain
like
a break. Right.
I left my 9 to 5 so that I could work 24/7. Like that's, yeah, that happens a lot. Very common.
Yes. I know that I'm not alone in that one. So that is one that I have to constantly come back to. And I think especially in year one, I actually felt like a deep well of guilt. Like it was really like, I felt a lot of guilt. I would even go so far as to say I felt shame around working like the appropriate number of hours to get the amount of work done that I needed to do, because it wasn't 40 hours a week. And I was reflecting back like over the holidays when I was, doing all my planning for 2026, and I have I have a journaling process, my cute little like Fibonacci tacos. I love them so much.
Big fan of journaling.
And I was this is why it's like so cute. Oh, it's so cute. But I was reflecting back, and something that I wrote in one of my first, and I can like feel the emotion well up in me as I even think of this. One of the things that I wrote when I was first leaving is, what if I leave corporate and I find out that I've been lazy all along?
Oh my gosh. Goodness, the lies we tell ourselves.
Look, I can feel the emotion in my body even saying that. What a disgusting thing to think about myself, to say about myself. And so I like that is a really hard one, is like, be clear on your North Star to make sure that as you're building your business, you're building a business that serves you, not corporate or capitalism or whatever else it is. So that one. That I would say the other one for me, and maybe this is like the salesperson in me, is that I have to be careful about how I set my revenue goals, because the most important thing to me isn't money. And that doesn't mean that I don't I run a multi-six-figure business. It's very lucrative, but I made stupid money in corporate. And this is kind of one of those pieces of advice, is that people were like, do this and you can replace your income in 1 year.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
And I was like, hey, like I turned down a $460,000 package to leave the corporate world, to be a full-time founder, to pay myself $50K in the first year. And so I kind of have to constantly come back to that like, if money was the most important metric for me, I could do that in corporate. I could do that by scaling. I have to repeatedly not make those choices. And one of the way I do that is by setting like a realistic revenue target for myself every year, so that I can like, it's on the board over here, so that I can constantly look at it and be like, you're okay. You're okay.
This is where you wanted to be. Yeah. Especially because you're taught your whole life, like achieve, overachieve, achieve more, break through the ceiling. And that serves you until it doesn't. So
Yes.
it's good advice.
So many of the things that served me deeply in corporate are things that do not serve me at all as a founder, to the extent that I'm realizing a lot of them were maybe more coping mechanisms than healthy habits.
Dang, that's deep, Leslie.
You live and you learn.
Now I'm like, goodness, I feel seen. So to wrap it up, that's all a lot. And I think, as you're heading
Wrap
into
it up. I'm going to go cry a little bit
I know,
after
goodness,
this.
me too. I'm like, oh, okay, bring it back together, Lindsay. Okay, so year 4, and I mean, does this kind of stuff still mess with you, or are you like solidly in it? So, okay,
Nope.
so it doesn't go away.
Definitely
Great,
still mess.
can't wait for that.
Yep. Just to let you know what the good news is, it definitely
Cool.
still plagues me. One thing I will share with folks, and I know that this is accessible to everybody, so I'm not saying that this is advice that's like, you should do this, take it or leave it, as we have talked about discernment, the entire thing. But I do work a 4-day work week. And when I say 4-day work week, I mean, I spend 4 days doing revenue centric work, 4 days doing client facing work. And I hold Monday, every single Monday. And I've done this for 4 years, for self work. And so I start Monday, every single Monday, with my journal. I only journal once a week, not daily. Well, that's not true. I do a gratitude journal. But for this journal, which is like my deep thinking, I journal for like 2 to 3 hours every single
Nice.
Monday to start the week. And I'll do like an extra long meditation. I'll do a workout, maybe a walk outside. So I hold Monday for self-work. And what I mean by that is both deep thinking, like structured deep thinking as I journal and I work through things. But also the opposite of that, which is time where I just kind of stare into the middle distance.
Yeah.
To let my creative juices and like let my brain work. And that is something that when I talk about like the guilt and the shame, I really, really struggled to hold that Monday for non-revenue generating work. Now, if there's a week where maybe I'm like traveling or something's happening and I don't get it, like I can feel the difference in the way I show up for the rest of the week. So maybe you can't do a whole Monday, but maybe there is a piece of that that might feel right for you as a founder, to give yourself more time for thinking.
Yeah. Which is super, super important, because you are the thinker of the business. You're the whole thing. You're the whole thing. And when you get into autopilot, that means literally the entire thing is on autopilot.
Really? Yeah. So like working on the business versus getting stuck working in the business. And I know for all founders, that's kind of something that we have to always bring ourselves back to be like, okay, am I only working in the business, or am I taking time to work on the business?
Totally. Amazing. Okay, Leslie, you also have a book. What is the book, and where should people buy it in bulk?
My face.
That's your face. That's
It's
you.
right on it. That's my face right on it. I do have a book that's called Profit Generating Pipeline, a proven formula to earn trust and drive revenue. You can literally find it anywhere, like Amazon, Walmart, Barnes and Noble. If you're able, buy it from a local bookstore, a bookshop.org, because I love to support independent and local bookstores. But yeah, buy it anywhere. And I'm actually next week, I'm starting to record the audiobook to make sure that that is out to celebrate the 1-year launch date of debuting as a USA Today Top 50 book.
Hey. Oh my goodness. Well, congratulations to you. You have so much going on. And thank you so much for sharing really important things. So I'm really glad that you were here.
Thank you. Thanks for this conversation.
Thanks for joining me for Actually I Can. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube so you never miss an episode. And look for me over on Substack, where I write for founders every week and actually go a lot deeper on some of these conversations to give you more information about how it all aligns to the Brave framework and the founder's journey. Remember, discernment is a valuable skill. Think of this show as practice. Go do something brave today. Thanks for joining me on Actually I Can. We'll see you next time.